It's a very Merry Christmas for Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons & Dragons, who've had a kind of breakthrough year in that a surge of popularity came with the success of the Dungeons & Dragons movie. And even despite the controversy around the OGL at the beginning of the year, where Wizards of the Coast attempted to stamp down their dominance on tabletop role-playing by wiping out their competitors as they saw them in third-party publishing, hurting indie publishers and their own fan base in the process, Dungeons & Dragons was still thriving and still the dominant tabletop role-playing game you'll come across. So of course their owners, Hasbro, celebrated by laying off 800 of their employees at the beginning of the year and an extra over 1,000 this week, just as the Christmas holidays began. Those layoffs also impacting Wizards of the Coast and the Dungeons & Dragons team, who had delivered that breakthrough year. And this is a reminder that Dungeons & Dragons is owned by Wizards of the Coast, themselves owned by Hasbro. These are ultra-capitalist organisations that have no interests other than providing cash to their stakeholders. And they will throw anyone into the fire in order to deliver that cash, whether it's their players, their fan base, third-party publishers who serve that thriving fan base, or even their own employees. Dungeons & Dragons, as we know it today, is entirely part of shareholder capitalism. And we've seen this happening in video gaming as well, as indie publishers producing beloved games get bought up by these big corporate bodies who then strip them for parts, laying off all the people who made those products great and squeezing their fan base for every penny they can give. The bright side of this process is it has resulted in a number of outfits who beforehand kind of clung to the side of Dungeons & Dragons to start producing alternatives that people can take up. One example is Kobold Press, who produced Tales of the Valiant, which is currently in development, and this can be played as part of a 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons campaign. You don't actually have to change anything. But because it's an open license game, it means anyone can take part in building the game and producing their own content that they can sell alongside it, giving power back to the fan base and the third-party publishers that Wizards of the Coast clearly don't want to give anything to. Another example is NCDM RPG, who have been built by some of the people who were involved with Dungeons & Dragons, and the entire point in their creation is to enable all the things that people seem to enjoy most about Dungeons & Dragons and removing all the things that hold them back. They've been raising money on BackerKit and they've blown past their goals. Aiming to raise $800,000, they end up raising almost 3.5 million so far. And then of course there's all the games that already existed in the same ecosystem as Dungeons & Dragons before this all kicked off, which are well worth your time looking into. I'm currently running a campaign in Symbaroum, which is a grimdark, more realistic RPG which comes with its own settings and campaigns, challenging your players to actually ask what would they do in this situation as these characters, rather than just being a power fantasy. And there are so many examples of different places you can go. Some people I know have gone over to Call of Cthulhu, which gives a completely different kind of playing experience. And I really encourage you to go search these out, because Dungeons & Dragons might be the most popular RPG, but it's also the one most directly threatened by the interests of corporations who just want to strip away as much as they can to make as much profit as possible for shareholders, not for your fun. So maybe this Christmas, consider buying a new kind of tabletop role-playing game for yourselves. And maybe in the new year, think about setting a new aim, which is experiencing these different systems. Because Wizards of the Coast doesn't have your back, and it's well worth making sure that you can have fun with your friends in the imaginary worlds you craft together, no matter what system you feel like using. Remember, the fun, the adventures, and the emotions that you share together all come from your imagination. The game is just the board your imagination comes alive on.